All right, here we go.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom! And welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Ducks Unlimited. I'm Jeff Stanfield with the world famous Andy Shaver.
We'll see you in Memphis when all that gets started.
I think first weekend in August.
I think so.
Is when it is. So we'll be at Memphis. We'll have a booth there. Come by and see us. Come say hi and get Andy's autograph and buy him a beer.
That's right.
Andy will drink a beer with everybody that buys him one.
What is going on here? I got a weird transition.
What's going on?
Nothing. I'll work it out on the fly. You're good.
With us today, Andy's ex-football coach, good friend of ours, Mr. Mitch McLemore, newly retired or will be retired in what, 3 months?
March 31st.
March 31st. How long have you been coaching?
34 years.
34 years. When you first got into it, do you think you'd make it a career?
Not really. Wasn't sure, but yeah, pretty much.
You love what you do and you love kids.
Yes.
What are you going to miss the most?
The kids, the coaches, just the people in general. It's a full-time, all the time thing, so you get to meet a lot of people and touch lives, and theirs touch yours. And, I've still got kids I coached back in '89, stay in contact, my first job at Bryson. And that's what I'm going to miss, is the kids, the coaches, and just the grind. To be honest,
we've been in some good runs. You coached it. Was your first job at Archer City?
First job was at Bryson, Texas.
It was your second job. Did you coach on the team at Archer City that almost won state? Or
no, that's how I got back into coaching. Did a scouting report for them the year before. But I was 3 years at Bryson. Got my first DC job under Jim Edwards at Mundy, Texas. Pottsboro offered head baseball and secondary, and Jim Edwards called me and said, come look. And that's when Bobby Dawkins was going to be a senior. And anyway, he'd done
the best athlete you ever seen?
One of them, yeah, which he didn't play for us.
He could have went to pro. He could have went straight from Monday High School to the pros, probably, huh?
He was an exceptional athlete, yes.
I saw him not a couple of years ago. He's still a big man.
But he had done all his running for, the trouble he got into, and the big ring got busted, drug ring, all that good stuff. And he just told Coach Edwards he's making too much money.
Had a full ride to Florida, didn't he?
I think so. I don't know.
Or Florida
all the
State
details.
or something? I mean,
but,
he was like a big time
DC,
recruit.
Yeah, he was going to make it real easy.
Yeah, like Debo out there.
Yeah. We still went to By District. I mean, kids, they do a great job there. But, yeah, Jim knew his football, but that was, Dad was killed in a car wreck September 7th, 92 of that year, and Mom and him got a divorce, so I was the guy, the oldest, so we worked Saturdays and Sundays. We worked ungodly hours, and I had to take like 3 weekends in a row to go into Dad's house and gather all the stuff and, yada, 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 and that did not sit well with Jim, but at the same time, it is what it is. I always got my work done, but I learned a lot of football from him. But saw him years later. I resigned January after a big blow up, which was not uncommon, and I'm not knocking him, but he, things change, and it was a great experience. Like I said, I learned a ton of football, but at the same time, I told my wife I won't ever do it again if it's like that. And we moved back to Archer City and got an oil field and variety of things there we'll get to. But start off working for Haygood and Campbell, got us a little rent house, and here we are today.
What was your first salary? Do you remember what it was?
I have no idea.
No. I think now, I mean, it's still probably not much more than
31,
what you.
It's 30,800 or 31,800.
Yeah.
Base pay.
And then you got your stipend, which varies from school to school, which
Right.
is not much, but still.
Right.
Like I guarantee you, whatever you got paid back then, it probably hadn't gone up much.
No.
Me and Payne talked about this last night or the night before. I was talking to him about he's getting the Army, and we're talking about money, and he goes, I got to find me a job, make 6 figures. And he goes, I know that sounds like a lot, but he goes, in the field that I'm in, that's not an unusual deal. But he said, I've spent this time of my life getting to this point. I don't want to take a job and make less money than that. I said, kind of like teachers that come out here. He goes, I don't know how they do it. He goes, I can't imagine going to school for 4 or 5 years to acquire any kind of debt to get out of college and start out making $40,000 a year as a coach or whatever they're making.
Yeah.
Or is it just a teacher? He said just a
teacher,
a computer teacher or whatever it
or
is.
science teacher or whatever.
And if you coach and do, I mean, then you get the stipends. And stuff. But they weren't much.
Payne could be a technology teacher at any high school in America, but there's no money in that.
No. Our government, state government is, well, they're terrible.
I'm a Republican, and I do not understand the battle with our education. Why it's so hard for Texas to spend this tons of surplus. We have billions in surplus.
Rainy day money.
Give us some money to our kids' educations.
$400 billion sitting there.
I just do not understand why we can't funnel some money. And everybody says, well, Abbott's got his eyes on the White House. Well, he can drive by and look at that stuff all day long. He ain't getting in there.
It's over vouchers. What's one of the best business models ever created? College.
Yeah.
You pay for this, you pay for that, you pay tuition, you pay for lunch, you pay for lodging, you pay for parking. So those private schools, yeah, they
see
make quite
the
a
same
bit of
business
money.
model.
And the government bails the colleges out all the time.
Well,
that's why college tuition costs so much.
Who's going to own those private schools? People with money, right?
Yeah,
And if you're in the legislature, which we're seeing with Doge right now, you can't tell me that there's not some people going to benefit from that going. Now, I'm against the vouchers. I think it's bullcrap, but they're holding us hostage. They'll give the teachers a raise if they get the vouchers, which, according to one of my 2 or 3 of my good friends that are really into that, go to Austin quite a bit, it'll blow up in 2 years.
Well, I heard last night we're still running on the same budget basically from 2019.
Yes.
And that's 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've seen what inflation has done to everything and how much it costs to, eggs right now.
What other business is
just,
priced 6 years ago?
Right. I mean, think about just running a cafeteria if you're a small school from 6 years budget from 2019.
It's not possible.
Your math ain't mathing. You're running out of resources.
But I don't understand why our kids are the sacrificial goat by the Republican Party. I just do not understand that, because most people I know that are Republicans are for kids, God, guns, everything that we all stand for. But then you got this big deal of education that we don't want to do, and I just don't. I do not understand, and I can't give anybody to give me a good reason why we have this battle with our school districts.
It's because the guy, I can't remember his name, but he donated $4 million to
There's 2 guys.
2 guys. One guy donated $4 million, and then he re-upped and donated another $2 million to Abbott's campaign. And then there's another guy.
Oh, it's lobbyists then.
Yeah, I mean and they're all big homeschool and private school guys, and they've basically paid Abbott off.
One of them owns a private school.
Yeah.
You see
Lives in Midland.
It's a lobbyist deal, and if you tell me that, I know it's not good, because it's self-interest, and it's that way with everything in our government. But I don't understand. We live in a county that's got 3 schools. Now, I'm probably going to piss some people off local, but I think we ought to have 1 school in the county. I think Haskell County should have 1 school. They have 3 schools. I think there's places in West Texas that we should have. We overfund schools, that we should have 1 school. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't keep funding. We should give more money than what we give, but I don't think we should have 3 schools in little counties. I just don't believe that. I think that's bad business. But if we're going to fund the big cities, we need to fund the small schools too, but we need to fund more. And spend some of that rainy day money and give those kids better opportunities. And that's why I wish we had 1 school in Knox County. I just think it would give our kids better opportunities.
The school's your biggest employer in the county.
That's right.
So if you go to one school, you're cutting your workforce down by 2/3.
Well, the federal government's fixing to do a bunch. I just read that. They're
Rural
fixing.
America, Texas especially, the largest employers school district.
Right.
Texas and hospitals are your big employers in the town.
And I don't care about getting rid of any teachers if we have in our one county.
Well,
I don't
know how
care
you
about
would do
that. You just I don't have a problem with that. The thing is, there's a shortage of teachers everywhere, so it's not like they can't get jobs.
It's bad.
So it's not like they can't get a job somewhere. It's not like you're cutting them off where they can't get they can get a job somewhere.
You would kill Knox City. You're talking 2/3 of the people are going to move out of Knox City.
If we want to do what's best for our children, we should have one school in Knox County and Haskell County.
Wow, we're killing it on all of our testing.
We don't. Our
What are
kids
you
would have
what are you
more.
talking about?
That's part
Your
of the
children,
problem.
our children would have more opportunities. If your son wants to play baseball in high school, he can play on a competitive team. If he wants to be in a chemistry deal where they can have an updated lab, they can have that. We do not have enough stuff for our kids because we're lacking students. Nothing against the teachers we have here, anything.
We haven't cut a single program here with our lack of
we
students.
don't have the solid programs we could have if we were twice as big.
Now that's a different argument, but
That's what I'm saying. I'm not knocking a teacher or nothing. I'm just saying we can give our kids more opportunities if you have more kids.
The state keeps mandating stuff, but they don't fund it.
Oh, I'm sure
So-
that's happening too.
The superintendents, you have to do this. You have to like put fencing around.
all the
and-
safety stuff that we've had to do.
But no funding.
Yeah, and I don't understand that either.
This year, we're taking away some funding. You're going to lose this, but we're mandating a new thing. The testing is stupid. We were the leaders in the world in most categories academically, or at least in the top 5 for how many?
Until the 70s,
Yes, when we started
test-
test-based stuff,
standardized test.
which are made most of the time. Well, the original one was made in Britain. I mean, and now our teachers have to pass tests.
Each school
They're
district,
stupid.
each school district should be held accountable for what their teachers do.
Yes.
If you live in Knox City, Texas, and you're a school board member, and we're good friends, our administrator's a great friend of ours, have been forever. He's a smart guy. He knows what's best for our school. If he's got a teacher that's not teaching, he's going to get rid of her. Take the state out of some of that stuff.
It should be local.
We need local, but if we're going to do the state involved, then the state needs to fund more stuff. And our politicians
That's
are all
it.
crooked fuckers, every one of them, including Hot Wheels. He's the same way. If he's getting paid money by these lobbyists on this, it's bullshit. We need to get rid of him. We need to put people in there that will do what's best for our kids. And I cannot believe it. It just blows my mind that we are sacrificing our children's educations over something we have plenty of, which is money.
Yeah.
A lot of places don't have that. We
That's
do
right.
have that. What is that money for? What? It's kind of like someone that you know that they save money their whole life. They put them in a box, they put them in the ground, and the kids spend all that shit in about 2 weeks. You know? Go enjoy your life and stuff. You've got plenty of money. We've got plenty of money. Let's help our kids out.
Or they got 10 million in the bank and they're living in a cardboard box
Yes.
in the alley.
Well,
I mean, that's
like-
really it.
There's a little school not far from here that makes enough money off tax base that with Robinhood, they're sending 300,000 to 400,000 back to the state every year. Places like Wink, Texas. So they're finding way every year they buy new buses, then they sell or lease the other buses. Otherwise, it goes back to the state, and it's got to be spent according to state mandates within their guidelines.
Which means give to the ghetto
The
districts.
lottery, all that stuff. What was it for?
Yeah, it's not.
Education.
Yeah.
Isn't Jayton,
Right.
isn't Jayton building a Top Golf?
Yeah, they're building a top golf.
don't know.
Yeah, because they have a surplus of money, but the money they have can only be spent on improving their athletic program.
Exactly.
So they're building a top golf for the students of Jayton, Texas. That's got
A town of 500 or 600 people.
And it's got to be tied
Right.
in academically, too.
Yeah. But they're doing that so they don't have to send it to the
Right.
city of Houston or Dallas, where they can give it to the ghetto schools, which has no accountability at all. And it's kind of like Baltimore. How the hell can anybody send money to Baltimore? They got like 5 kids out of their senior class of the whole town that can read and write.
It's a disaster.
It is.
To be honest.
And
I mean,
then with the voucher program, so the private schools don't even have to take your kid. Like
No.
just because you can afford
No
it.
special ed accommodations.
No, nothing like
They
that.
just say
If you've got
no.
a sped kid or a second language learner, somebody that doesn't speak English, they can just tell you no, whether you can afford the tuition or not.
Exactly
So
right.
you're not going to get any more of these poor and afflicted people into these private schools because they're just going to turn them away.
Well, when we were the leaders, like I was saying, academically, we taught.
Yeah.
We taught out of books, but we also had lectures, and we didn't worry. We didn't have all the testing. You know, if you were in biology, you learned biology.
Yeah.
You didn't worry about which questions you really needed to hammer home. And we've got brilliant teachers that you take all that away. Wow, we'd be right back where we were because they love what they do and they're so good at it. Mm-hmm. And Texas is blessed in that regard. But it's also what the state government is doing. And I was independent for a long time, but became real conservative over the last 20 years. But this election, other than the state of our country, it'd been hard for me to say vote for Abbott.
Yeah.
Or,
yeah.
or any
The
Republican.
only reason he's going to win is because he's a Republican, and we don't want the dumbass Democrats because they're so far left. I'm very liberal in some of my socialist thoughts in some things, not a lot. I don't mind helping people. I don't mind spending more money on education. Mm-hmm. I don't think that I like everything Trump's done so far. Just about, I'm for it. Other than the Gaza
Pretty much
stuff,
me too.
Everything because I think we need government accountability, and I feel bad for the people that are going to get laid off at the federal government levels. But there's a lot of them jobs we shouldn't have been having and paying that kind of money for. So we're going to have some tough times. But I'm with you.
We've already saved almost $1 trillion.
Yep, I'm for the Republican most of the stuff they did. But this education deal has been my big problem with Abbott. And Abbott needs to go. We need to get somebody else. But we don't need another professional
Dan
politician.
Patrick started all this.
Yeah,
If you'll remember way back there, and if the teachers would do what they did back then, they threatened to walk out for one day. Well, what do you know? They call a special session, and teachers get raises. And if we had a group of teachers that would take that lead, they could fix. Of course, we can't have unions. They would fix a lot of that. And some article in Texas Monthly, Dan Patrick, said, well, something about the unions. I'm thinking, you can't have a damn union. I mean, and this is the guy that's a genius.
But throwing money at the teachers is not the answer to the problem. The problem is throwing money at the students. Now, you need to give your teachers raises. I don't have a problem with that.
You would
Yeah,
attract
you do.
better. You would
It's
attract.
a profession.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't. What I'm saying though is just giving a teacher a $5,000 a year raise ain't going to answer isn't going to fix the problem we have. We need to take that $5,000, give it to the teacher, but then give $10,000 per student extra for that kid's education.
I agree.
Fix our education problems, and we've got tons of money.
Yes.
It's not like we have a money problem. If we were California's broke, if we were them and they were bleeding money right now, that's a different story. But we have the financial backing in Texas
And the
plenty of it.
economy.
Yes, there's so many other ways Texas can
Well,
make
look
money.
at their high-speed railway.
Yeah,
It's the same thing Doge is coming across. It was bureaucracy.
$10 billion.
It ain't been built
Nothing to be shown for it.
because permits.
Yep. But let's take that. Let's take some money. I don't know. What'd you say our rainy day fund had in it?
400 billion.
$400 billion
Okay,
at one point.
10% of that. 10% is $40 billion. $40 billion, you could fix every public school in Texas.
I think that they've already. I'm probably going to butcher this, but I think they've already thrown $1 billion for this voucher thing. I think is what it's going to cost with the $10,000 whatever per family or student or whatever.
You see the ratio?
I think it's going to cost $1 billion.
Voucher or private school students will have 10,000 or right at that spent on them at a private school versus 680.
Yeah, it's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
And my problem is that in Knox City or Haskell or Throckmorton, where my grandkids go to school at, there is no private school. There is no
Right.
charter school. They're going to have to drive 100 miles to go to the nearest charter schools would probably be Abilene or Wichita Falls for both of them. So
Right.
an hour drive every morning to go to this charter school that you can select to go to. It doesn't play into our hands. We don't count with the state because we don't have enough votes anyways.
Right.
What they're worried about was making Austin happy, Houston, the big metroplexes, San Antonio, and it's not right.
All it's going to do is give the people that already had their kids in private school a $10,000 break.
Yeah,
I mean,
or
that's
more
it.
than that, because this was explained to me by an administrator. It's 10,000 a student. Well, let's say that they set aside $20 million for Hockaday Girls School in Dallas. I think it's still a school if it's still there. And out of Hockaday, they have only 50 kids try to get into this program that are poor. The other kids can't, even with the 10,000, they can't come up with the other $10,000.
Right.
So what they do is they just give them the money, and then the kids all get free tuition that are rich kids.
Or they homeschool.
Yeah.
And what happens to the money? And then when that's not going well, the public schools still have to take them.
Well,
Right. Yeah, and that's another thing. I think in this, homeschoolers will be lumped into the $10,000. So if you homeschool your kid with an accredited whatever, you can get the $10,000. But how many people are going to do that? You know, it's like collecting the insurance check for your roof and never fixing it.
Well, I've dealt with some homeschooled children as a judge many times. Not every time. 90% of the time, the people that were homeschooling their kids had no business freaking homeschooling a kid at all. Now, I ran into some really good people. I've got a good family in Oklahoma that we used to hunt on their land a bunch, and they homeschooled their kids. Their kids had a room in their house. There's a classroom, and she taught every day in there. Now, she had a master's, and she was and their kids are good. Their kids had a great experience.
Right.
But the majority of the people I dealt with that homeschooled kids had no business. Mama was too lazy to get her ass up out of bed to take her kid to school, so she just homeschooled them.
Well, and most people got to work.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Well, some of
The
these
husband, the wife.
some of these moms didn't work, but
Right.
they weren't going to teach their kids. They didn't teach nothing.
No.
Those people have no business getting $10,000 a year to teach their kids.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it is $1 billion. Texas lawmakers have introduced Senate Bill 2, which aims to allocate $1 billion to provide $10,000 to each student enrolled in accredited private schools. So $1 billion check's already going to be written.
Why do we need to pay for private schools? It's private school is what it is. It's like saying, you know what, the state is going to give you money to go to SMU. No, the state's going to give you money to go to a state school, which is cheaper.
Yeah, well, they're not going to give you anything unless you qualify for a scholarship. So,
Well,
so
or
mom and dad like us, we're still helping pay college debt. I paid my last bit of debt here at Knox City.
yeah, it's crazy how that works.
Yeah.
You know, we paid off Andy's college. It seemed like it took 37 years, but it didn't. But I wrote check the last time a long time ago. But we don't make enough money that we can afford to kids to go to school at a private school at a what's a private unit, $40,000 a year now? Go to college?
I wouldn't even
Who the
venture
hell?
a guess.
If you got 3 kids, you're gonna spend $500,000 sending them to college to get a job that you can't even get a job. I mean, it's
And
college.
then loan forgiveness, but like the parents don't qualify for that.
No, it's a bad. It's
It's
the
jacked up.
education system screwed up. When I first went to college, it was affordable. You could work part time
I agree.
and make $5 an hour, and you could go to school. And if you saved a little bit of money, you could pay your tuition, and you could get out okay.
Yep.
Well, you can't do that nowadays. You can't save up enough money to go to college if you're a student on your own.
And I don't know why anybody would go to like TCU or whatever and get a degree in education.
They're rich kids, most of them. But that's what
So you're going to get a job that pays $30,000 to start out at $30,000 a year?
well, most of those rich kids that are doing it, their parents don't worry about them having a job anyways.
Qualify, that is base pay, but on the I-35 corridor, anywhere along there,
More.
they pay above base. Like Pecos, Texas, base pay now for any teacher is $75,000
Right.
before anything else.
Well, husband and wife can go to Pecos and make a good living, but who wants to live in Pecos, Texas?
Exactly.
I mean, that's no. I mean, fuck. I'd rather that.
And the cost of living is not cheap.
No, watch Landman if you want to know about Pecos, Texas, because
Yeah.
that's what it is.
I lived in Big Spring. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not cheap.
It's the same way
Yeah.
because it's all the guys are working, making 150 to 200,000 a year that work 100 hours a week.
Yeah. And like Wink, Texas pays really well.
Well, the
so they don't have trouble getting teachers and coaches.
Right.
But it's hard to get teachers and coaches at Haskell, Texas.
The spending in Wink, Texas, by the employees in that town
Just
is
as an
increased
example.
because no overtime taxes anymore. Can you imagine those guys are going? That's a big raise to a lot of them guys.
Daggum
Them
right.
guys, some of them guys are making $50,000 extra a year of non-taxable money now. And that's
a
not
lot of
even
money.
spouting off. That's probably pretty damn close to it. What about all the strippers in this country? They've been lying on their taxes forever. All of a sudden now they're going to be cashing in, taking that cash to the bank, and it's non-taxable. It's good for them.
Good for them.
I'm making more tips now. I can already tell you.
Everybody's going to. You know? Well, you made $212 last month. Yeah, but I made $27,000 in tips.
There you go.
A lot of happy people.
It's the American dream. So I told the holiday coach, what was it? I'm blanking right now.
Coach Wolf.
Coach Wolf.
Oh, Terry.
Terry. I told him you administered the greatest ass chewing that I've ever had as a high school student. And I'll never forget it. Sophomore year playing in the playoffs baseball, and I got confused on go and whoa in between second and third base. It was like a line drive, and I can't even remember the rule now. I'm supposed to freeze or something and see what it did.
Freeze on the line drive.
Anyway, I did the opposite. Had to go back, tag up, and barely got to third. But you hammered my ass that I should have scored, and I'll never forget that ass chewing. But
He had torn Achilles in too, probably.
no, that was my freshman year, freshman or eighth grade year. So you had recovered from the Achilles, but I could see where I never took it personally. You know what I mean?
Never. It never is.
But I could see where some kids might melt down and all this other stuff. But I kind of wore it as a badge of honor that you went at me so hard because
You have talent.
you knew that it was just going to be over with the next play, the next inning.
Right.
Right. So I still kind of carry that as a badge of honor because I could realize at that age that I screwed up. I should have had my ass chewed.
Well, my ass chin compared to Terry Wolf's or nothing.
Oh,
because
really?
He restarted the baseball program at Arch City. So my junior year was first year of baseball since the 1950s when a kid was killed, got hit in the head by a ball, foul ball, something like that. And him and a group of people brought it back, started the program. He was the head baseball coach. Loved him to death. But football, baseball, he is going to coach he's one of my favorite of all time. I love Terry Wolf to death. But now when he was chewing your ass, it was not personal, but it was effective.
You got your point across.
Also, you chewing Andy's ass. You know us real well, and Andy's background. You knew raised around the hunting lodge. You're going to get used to you better have some thick skin as a kid.
Right.
And there's some kids that don't.
Era.
Yeah, and different. But you could still chew on one of my kids' asses. It wouldn't make a big deal because it's a different life. You got some kids down there that never ever have anything ever told to them that's not positive.
I am well aware, and people say it's kids. I said kids haven't changed.
Yeah.
Parents.
I said the parenting has changed, and the culture has changed. And I said which affects the parenting. I said, but kids are just kids. And when I'd go home, I didn't talk about coaches. I didn't talk about teachers. I did not tell them if I'd got licks. I did not tell them about
Hell
one
no.
time a teacher choked me in class almost to the point of passing out. And I love that guy today. But my mom would have come unglued. And I did nothing to deserve that, but it happened. And because I was brought up to handle your own crap.
You think Joe Bob Tyler could coach today?
I think he's a hell of a coach. I think it'd have to be the right setting.
Yeah, I don't know because man, he grabbed
I
your
think
face mask
he
and chewing
just-
your ass.
Yeah. Yeah, the grabbing the face mask stuff, yeah, that's, yeah.
And he loved his kids as much as anybody. But that's what he was a World War II veteran.
Swinging the board worked,
Oh,
but we took that away. When Dad was at Owey Park, there was a coach assigned to the board. You'd be in practice, and if you screwed up enough, there was a coach who went over and got your butt swatted during practice.
yeah, that's
And none of the parents complained.
Yeah.
no, it's the way it was back then.
When I was going to school at Tech, I was in an education class, and somehow licks got brought up, and the students that were from like Dallas and Houston, they were like, "Y'all, they could hit y'all at school." I'm like, "Well, when you put it that way, it sounds a little bad, but
Yeah.
they're just called licks. It's just part of it. You screw up enough, you're gonna go."
It's a deterrent. I got
big
many.
one.
I got 30 my fourth grade year for basically nothing. She was mean as hell. But, yeah. And if in high school, J.B. Adams, if you went in there, he lit your butt up. But you know what? I didn't do that again for a while.
Found something else to do.
And if you went home and your parents found out about it, they
I
weren't mad
didn't
at
take-
him. They were mad at you.
Yeah, I didn't tell him nothing.
Yeah, because you didn't want to get it again.
No.
Should have learned your lesson.
My
before you got
question,
licked.
if I got home, was how'd your day at school went? Good.
Good.
It was
Yeah.
enough. It's never said nothing there. Never got in trouble, nothing. One of the worst things ever, my mom come home one day and she goes, I ran into your teacher at the grocery store today. I was like, oh shit. This ain't good. And I don't even remember what it was, but that's not what I wanted to hear about. That's what's good about going to a big high school is your parents and your teachers don't know nobody. In a small town, everybody knows shit.
That's right.
And if you got in trouble at school, like when the boys were in school, everybody got in trouble at school I'd know about because I'd hear about it. So I'd know. Well, hell, everybody knew that. Well, the big school, nobody would know.
Right.
Because you didn't know the teachers and stuff. So.
Yeah.
I wonder if we'll ever see that culture shift again where we get tough kids.
Tough men, what's that saying?
Hard. I guess that's what it would take. Hard times.
Well, masculinity needs to be brought back.
Yeah.
The lacking of alpha males. Like when
It's biblical. I mean, it's
I open doors. If I see a lady going in the door, I open a door. I open the door for my wife.
yeah.
I let Michelle go in the door first. I mean, Michelle sometimes waits for me to go in the door first, and it wears me out because I'd rather her walk in the deal. But you're supposed to protect him. If you're walking down the street, you're supposed to be on the outside of or towards the street, and the ladies on the inside and stuff. Well, I do stuff like that, and I say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, all the time. It's a habit, and I'll say stuff. We'll be on vacation somewhere. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. It sure is nice to see a man with manners again. And I'm thinking, what happened to him?
Exactly.
Because my boys all say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am.
And every group I've coached, they hear this repeatedly. Your job is to put young ladies on a pedestal.
Yeah, I just don't.
And you're called to be more than warriors. You're called to be conquerors. That means that you take care of the little guy getting bullied on. I mean, as a coach's kid, everywhere we went, I'd have a fight or avoid one if I could. And you just didn't whine about it. You just dealt with it. There's one place we went, I was second grade, and two kids were asking for my lunch money, and Dad found out about it. And they were big kids. And he said, if you ever give them another penny, I'm going to beat your butt when you get home. And he told the principal to be watching, which I'm sure he talked to the kids, but I told him, I said, no. And I said, we're fixing to beat your ass. I said, well, you probably are, but I'll take my chances versus my
Rather
dad.
get it here than my dad.
Yeah. Just a totally different deal. But the effect teachers have a chance to make on the impact starts so young. I've still got a note from my second grade teacher in Quanah, Texas, Miss Daughtery, that means the world to me. And I couldn't tell you verbatim what it said, but it's basically praise for something in some class and doing something nice for somebody else. And that's what I preach every day. Do the right thing. Have the courage to be a blessing to somebody else. Have the courage to go sit with the kid that has nobody sitting with them. That's the big stuff.
Just be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The golden rule.
I always think back to the lessons that you and Hutch and, that whole coaching staff imparted on us as young guys, like all the time. And like, even with my kids now, it's like, do the little things right. Cause that's going to add up into the big day. Like, does your dish really got to go on the counter when you could just walk over here and put it in the dishwasher?
Right.
It's the same thing.
Sound like your mom.
But it's the truth. Like you took the effort to take your plate away from the table, which I commend you for. But like, do we have to set it on the counter? Like, we can set it in the dishwasher. It doesn't take much more effort.
And we're all guilty sometimes.
of
but at the
course.
same time,
Of course.
repetitive.
Yeah.
And that's what every kid growing up, they need at least 100 repetitions of good stuff. So I have our coaches give a word of the day, and it can be something simple. Just do this, don't do that. Treat it the golden rule, et cetera, and so forth. But, well, I know they've heard it. I said, yeah, but they need to keep hearing it.
Yeah.
It's just like, be responsible for you. Mm-hmm. No, I told the group this year, there's no fumble, strikeout, mistake I ever made on any type of playing field that was anybody's fault but mine.
Mm-hmm.
It was not the coach. It wasn't my parents. I messed it up. I made the mistake.
Right.
And I said, people are really good about owning successes, but we're in a society that most cannot own their failures.
Yeah.
And that's where your character really lies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the man in the mirror is responsible for 100% of your
right.
problems. Reason Jeff don't have a private jet is because of that guy in the mirror.
Right.
I mean, same thing. The reason I'm not in prison is because that guy in the mirror too. I mean, there's two ways to look at
Or
it.
you're doing exactly what God had planned for you.
I could always remember you would your biggest if you struck out, you don't walk back to the dugout, and I
That's
never
right.
understood it as a high school kid. But now that I'm coaching little
Because
league,
it's pouting.
right? But now that I'm coaching little league, same thing. Kid strikes out, and you got your head in the dirt, and it's like, no, get to the dugout and let's move on.
If you're scared to fail, you can't be great.
Right.
Andy's not. It's funny watching Andy coach little league because Andy was probably a pretty easy kid to coach,
He was. He's competitive.
but Andy expects them kids to all be like Andy's, and there's not very
Good.
many of them like that anymore because society has changed so much. And it's funny because we'll be watching a game and some kid will whine about something, and I told Michelle, I said, "Boy, Andy's the wrong guy for this kid to be whining about." Like, kid was catching last year. It's hot in here, and Andy's like, "Well, that's okay." You know, Andy has zero tolerance for that shit
I'm the same
because
way.
Andy was that way when he was little, and so he expects everyone else to be that way. Well, it's funny to me watching him because he does it with his boys all the time. Well, that's just life.
Right.
He makes his niece cry sometimes because he hurts her feelings because he treats her just like he does the boys. Well, she's not used to hearing that all
Right.
the time. They are, but when he talks to another kid, I used to snicker and laugh when their kid tries to get something over on him. I thought, boy, you're jacking with the wrong coach here because he don't.
I just never was very talented. I wasn't overly talented like a lot of people. So I had to focus on the things that I could control, and most of that's the little things. So
Oh, yeah.
to me, like
Body language issues.
you just see kids, and you're just like, let's fix some small things, and you can succeed in this. But whining doesn't
Number
go very
one
far with
thing
me.
for me is we're too damn blessed to be pouting.
Yeah.
We have nothing to pout about. We're playing a game, or we've got a home to live in. You got a vehicle or people that'll help you. You're richer than 95% of the world's, or 90% of the world's populations. If you got $5 in your pocket,
Yeah.
a place to live, and a way to be transported, and so we have no reason, nothing to whine about. Mm-mm. And even everybody wants to win.
Yeah.
But you win, it goes to character as much as anything. The most athletic team rarely wins the championship.
I can see that.
It's always the best team, where the players care more about their teammates than themselves. Mm-hmm. And I had a great group here that was like that.
Yeah.
At Stanford, had a great group there. Junction, we did too. They were more concerned about their teammates' well-being and them falling short than they were when the other players screwed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the first thing you do is you walk up there, and even as a coach, you pat them on the back. They fumble the ball, you give it to them again.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get away from that.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask something completely away from coaching and stuff. Just I've always wanted to ask you this. I never have. Your uncle's one of the most famous men in the world, Larry McMurtry.
Right.
What was that like? I mean, that's was y'all close, or just was he a distant?
I loved him to death. I didn't get to see him much, but some of my best memories, because he treated me like a young adult, even when I was not a young adult. So when he'd come in, I'd go stay with him and James out at the ranch house. We'd go to a movie, and we talked about real stuff. Nothing real deep, but maybe something in the newspaper or a movie, and he was awesome.
Was he wasn't a cowboy or nothing though, was he?
No. No.
He was kind of a nerdy book guy, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
but he was really in tune with that Western motif type deal.
I mean, my grandfather, one of the pioneer ranchers in Archer County, and he recognized very early on that was not going to be Larry's calling. The youngest, Charlie, is one of the best cowboys around that area, but it's not what he wanted to do. He wanted to do what Larry did, ended up teaching in college, and eventually went into welding and stuff like that.
Well, how did Larry get into the writing like he is? Because there's a lot of guys write, but there's not very many people. There's not very many writers that are alive that are successful. It seems like most of them.
I don't know. He just knew.
I mean, so what did he do? He goes from Archer City to college.
Rice.
He went to Rice University, so he had to be pretty smart to get into Rice.
Yep.
And he was a journalism student or just a literature?
Literature, I don't know what degree, but then he was teaching classes there before he left. I don't know if he got his doctorate.
Where did he write Lonesome Dove at?
He wrote that. That was when I was growing up. I mean, I don't remember the exact dates, time frame, but
Takes forever to read that damn thing. I can't
he
imagine
got up
writing it.
every morning. I mean, I guess until he couldn't anymore, but had an old typewriter. They stopped making them, so he went around the country, bought every one he could find, and he put out 13 pages every day.
Really?
That's how he started his day.
He wrote 13 pages, whatever
Yeah.
he was on.
Started out, writing book reviews, stuff like that. Well, he could read a book. I've watched him, briefly, but it's amazing. He had a gift. The word, he speed reader, whatever you want to call it.
John F. Kennedy was that too.
But he could go through all those books in his house, He read every one of them almost.
Was he a odd
Thousands.
guy? Was he an odd guy? No,
not at all.
Down to earth, like
Down to earth, blue jeans, just
amazing writer.
I never told you this, but I met your grandmother. She lived at Rolling Meadows, didn't she?
Hazel.
I guess.
McMurtry, yes.
Yeah, I delivered furniture to her when I was probably 19 years old. And she let me know she was Larry McMurtry's mom.
Yeah.
And I would have been real proud of him too.
She is a mess.
But that was years and years and years ago, but I never did tell you. So he was just, what was his first big hit?
Horseman Passed By, maybe.
Was his first big book that he made?
Which was a book, but it was a series of stories, which I think they turned into HUD.
Okay, and then when did he get into, he wrote Terms of Endearment before Morning, the deal. So the Last Picture Show was basically a tell-all about all the crap going on in Archer City at the time, which I'm sure did not make some people happy.
No, they were quite ostracized, for a while.
I can see that, but
Yes.
I've never seen the movie, or read the book.
pretty bleak movie if you have. I mean, it's very depressing.
But
It's very true.
The people knew who he was writing about, I guess.
Well, they suspected it was this one
This
or that
person,
one, but
right.
they were fictional.
Yeah. They were
And
fiction.
he did admit there was one guy who I worked for, is in the oil field, that a character was a little bit based off him.
Yeah. So they kind of cast him out after.
Yeah.
So, and that was what, 1969, 1970?
Oh, yeah. Way back.
My dad was in it, and so I don't even. It had to be when I was a baby. So when he come with that was his first big Hollywood break, right?
Yes, I believe. Oh, yeah. The Last Picture Show. Absolutely.
And won Academy Awards, big deal. And then he had Lonesome Dove is
Best.
iconic.
One of the best Westerns
yeah.
ever.
So I know you don't have this answer, but he had to make millions and millions of dollars off Lonesome Dove, I would think.
I don't know how all that works. I know. He did fine, but Larry was very generous.
Kim told me when y'all got married, he offered to fly y'all anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world we wanted to go
and you
for
went to
2 weeks.
Did you go to Jackson Hole, Wyoming?
We drove to San Antonio, Texas.
Because you didn't want to fly.
Stayed on the Riverwalk for 3 days. He said Italy, anywhere, and
San
I was
Antonio.
an idiot. Yeah.
She told Michelle that one time. I
Yeah.
was in the back room and I come in and I go, what now? And she told me that story. I go, you got to be shitting me. I don't know why I was thinking Jackson Hole. But I said, she's like, anywhere. She goes, I
Yeah.
could have killed Mitch.
Yeah.
We'll settle on
Well,
San
she
Antonio.
had part of it too. She didn't want to fly either.
Oh,
Well, I'm
But-
sure that her husband talked her into that, though. She would have went.
Yeah, probably.
Clay said y'all had a big his wedding party for Kelly Jean at Larry's house.
No, it was a wedding reception or something.
Oh.
Yeah.
And they weren't supposed to be there.
Y'all weren't supposed to be there.
Yeah, stuff happens.
And then I guess your mom came over and the party was over.
Yeah, that happened on more than one occasion. Yeah.
Clay said it was getting pretty rowdy upstairs. Him and Kelly Jean were playing pool down in the basement, and then I guess he had some collectible tricycle, and I guess it got to where they were ramping that off and all sorts of.
What an interesting uncle to have, though. That's very interesting.
Loved him to pieces. He was so good to everybody. And just hanging out with him was a cool thing.
From Archer City, Texas, to one of the greatest riders of all time.
One of my best memories is him coming into the ranch house, drove the old silver station wagon, had a dog, Franklin, and James coming in, and I went to spend the night with him, and we went to a movie at Sac Center and went and ate and all that good stuff. And I had a great time. We talked about everything, and he'd ask me questions, and then I'd ask him, and James is very smart as well. So, yeah, he was just special.
He was in tune with the world, is what he was.
Yes, he was.
Crazy eyes to go through. I mean, you think of looking through his lens from The Last Picture Show to HUD to Terms of Endearment.
Didn't have a mean bone in his body.
That's an amazing life right there. Mm-hmm. It's to all these young people listening. You can do anything you want to do.
And
put your mind to it.
Yeah, taken advantage of by a lot of people too.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of people in Hollywood made a whole lot more money than he made off his stuff.
Right. But somehow with all that, the rights to Lonesome Dove, all that, I don't know the whole process. I'm not going to say much about it right now, but somehow it's been gathered back to his son, who now has sold it. I don't know if it's Larry stuff. I don't know.
People buy them catalogs all the time. Of I just saw someone the other day. Maybe
James Bond, wasn't it?
Yeah, James Bond just sold to Jeff Bezos, bought the James Bond catalog, and they're going to redo it, make a new one. This is the longest they've been between James Bonds. And Shaquille O'Neal bought a catalog of someone that's a famous singer, and I can't remember, Blues Travelers or somebody I read the other day. And, it's those people cash in on that stuff, and I don't blame them. I know at one time Michael Jackson bought all of the Beatles stuff.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So that's pretty interesting. So how does Mitch McLemore, Archer City High School, like to party and have a good time? How did you get on the path to being where you are now?
Oof. Well, I loved athletics. Like I said, Dad was a coach till I was 7th grader, and then I was worried about having to move because back then they could fire you for any reason. Lived at Electra, loved it, had a great time. Joe Loudermilk was head coach. Dad DC, Wayne Stone OC, was in there with Childress when they had Perry Moore, but had some great football teams. But they wanted me to be able to settle, so he got out of coaching and went into insurance. Well, the night my 8th grade year, moved to Holiday, went fine. Don, can't remember the head coach's
Lucy.
name. Don Lucy was the head coach. Was great, but the Sunday before 2 days of my freshman year, he said, do you want to go here or do you want to go to Archer City? Because all our family was in Archer City. And my cousins, who I loved them to death, spent a lot of time with, grandmothers and all that, they were there. And that's where every summer I couldn't wait, to get to go for a couple of weeks. And I said Archer City. So we went that evening and met the head football coach and, went there all 4 years and met that lady I'm married to at an 8th grade track meet at Holiday, Texas, actually.
So Kim went to school. She went to Archer City, though, didn't she?
She is at Archer City. I was at Holiday, but went all those years to high school together. Never dated, and then, but in the meantime, yeah, when it came to football, I was all about football. I mean, if it was baseball, yeah, everybody, your freshman year, you go to the Archer County Rodeo back then. Having a beer was sort of a rite of passage. It was a different world. Did we occasionally have some? Yes, but not during season. Now, I had friends that did, but I wouldn't. And so, had a lot of fun, great experiences, made playoffs senior year. Only one of the few teams in baseball history to qualify for the playoffs the second year. I think we went to the 3rd round. I got picked off 3rd. Anyway, and then July 4th, 1984 is the first time that Kim and I arranged a date at a big party we were having at the spillway at Lake Kickapoo. We'd taken my pickup and got borrowed horse trough, feeding trough from Barron Brothers. went to the beer store, got 20 cases of Budweiser, went to Penguin Ice, bought a case of rock salt, pulled out there, and it was one heck of a party. But it was so heavy, busted my tire, blew it out. But anyway, it was up until that point in time, I had never, dope and all that, wanted nothing to do with it. Didn't hear much about it, but occasionally. And we're headed to the party, and one of the people with us said, "Here, try some of this." I said, "What is it?" And he told me, and I said, no way. And another person said, "It's not like you think it is, blah, blah, blah." Well, it was cocaine.
Oof.
And
That's a hell of a drug to start off with.
Yep. And what the hell, I didn't mind being a rebel. So I snorted my first line of cocaine and had a great time. I don't know if I had any more, but had a hell of a night. I don't remember much except waking up in the pickup because I had to work the next morning, wrenching rods, and Dad had just got a brand new truck. And when I woke up, I'd pulled into his door and fell asleep. I mean, I crashed his door on his new truck.
Oof.
And when I woke up, I changed clothes I had in my truck and went to work immediately. And that was the beginning of a long journey of stuff that people don't need to do.
Does cocaine give you a hangover like alcohol does?
No, it gives you the Joneses.
Oh, wanting more.
Yeah. You remember they had a advertisement of a guy in a little brown bottle, but he can't get out. It was
Kind of, sort of.
Talking about how addictive drugs are. And that's about as apropos as you can advertise it. Now, was I addicted at that time? No. It was here, there, and then heard of this stuff called meth and tried a little of that. And, meanwhile, I'm going to college, et cetera, and so forth. And still drank a lot, way too much. But most of the people I ran with did too. And as things continued, it progressed. And that gets us to Kim and I had fell in love, or I guess I made her fall in love with me, but I dropped out of college for a semester so I could save up enough money to buy her a ring. And so I would drink, do some drugs, work 40 hours a week, and go to college. And she was working at a bank. We lived together and weren't married yet, and everybody talked about that, of course. But from the time I graduated high school and left to go to Southwest Texas, there's very few times I ever stayed at Mom and Dad's house again. And we got married in 85, 86, and kept on doing. I went to Southwest Texas and then back to UT in Arlington, and then Midwestern. Worked for a pulling machine company. I'd go 3 days and then be off 2 and work Saturdays on the pulling machine. Worked in athletic supply in the mall, did all that stuff. Like you said, I worked, working's what we did. And somehow, some way, found a way to get my degree.
That's an amazing feat right there.
Yeah, and I was in my final stages of getting my education degree or whatever, and one of the classes was you had to teach your class, pick a lesson, whether it be history or whatever. Well, I'd been on a 2-dayer. I hadn't been to sleep in 2 days. Combination of alcohol and other things. And after I finished, the teacher held me over and he said, "You failed." He said, "That is the worst thing I've ever seen." He said, "If you don't knock the top out of the next one, you're going to have to retake this." Well, okay. I knocked the top out of the next one. Much same conditions, but I planned better. And I had a history paper due, 20-page for some Russian history class. Well, I've got 8 hours to get it in. I go to the Midwestern Library, and I do my paper and make an A+. And that was the last course I needed to finish. And so now I was a certified teacher, got my certification in 1989, got a call from Jim Curley at Bryson, Texas, went and interviewed, hired me. It was me and him and Mike Kern, only 3 coaches on the boys' side, and then 1 on the girls' side. And they had a little school house across the street for rent. So Kim and I moved in there, and we were hanging the shower curtains. It's like the week before two-a-day starts, or close. So we're already working, of course. But we're hanging them up, and this big hurricane, I can't remember the name. I think Katrina, it wasn't Katrina. But anyway, she was only 8 months along. Well, when the barometric pressure dropped, her water broke. So we've got an old Mustang with the windshield wipers with the rubber, it's not good. And trying to get her to the hospital. Fortunately, she'd pre-registered. Marnie was born not long after we got there. She went real quick in her dilation, and she is a month premature, so her lungs weren't developed, so had to put her in ICU. And I made lots of promises to God then. They couldn't get, she was so tiny, they couldn't even get an IV in. They had to put it in her head. Oof. And we had to leave her there for a day or two and then go back. Every day we'd go back. And then the coaching began, and Jim Curley, I saw him years later. I was assistant and head everything. Is head JV boys basketball, head junior high boys basketball, assistant football, assistant high school varsity boys basketball, head junior high football, many trips, which it was just me and the kids, and I loaded up the water, drove the bus, and we went. And then I was head junior high track, assistant high school track, and then assistant baseball too. And then my third year, I became the head baseball coach. We had a really good team, and I think finished number 9 in the state or something. Lost in the second round, but all the while, I'm what they call a practicing addict.
You were still doing
I was
cocaine.
functional.
Yeah.
Cocaine really wasn't that big a deal to me.
What was the drug?
After trying meth.
Oh, meth was the one that got its hooks into you?
Yeah. And I even quit.
Smoke it, I guess? Is that how?
No, I snorted it.
Snorted it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the drinking interfered with my buzz, so I slowed down on the drinking, or if I did, I drank a lot because it enhanced your drinking where you wouldn't get drunk. Anyway, that's where all that started, and then 4th year we go to Monday, and I'd had bits and periods where I'd leave it alone, etc. Always drank beer and stuff, but like I said, that's when Dad died and all that good stuff, and challenging year and some other things that happened, and I resigned in January. We moved back to Archer City, and I worked Haygood and Campbell, got a good pumping job for a guy out of Olney, a lot of money compared to what I was making, and slowly but surely it got worse and more frequent. And it reached a point, just to cut a lot of stuff out, that little rent house was just me. Mom, or Kim and Marty had moved in with Mom. Don't blame them. I never physically hurt anybody, but emotionally, I was more in love, you might say, with cocaine than I was them. Now, that's not really the truth, but cocaine had a huge death grip on me. Mm-hmm. There's different ways to do everything, but there is a point, there is a line, and when you cross that line that I crossed, less than 5% of those that become addicts ever get back across. And lost that job, and anyway, I'd already been to 6 rehabs by this time. And I'm sitting in the house, And I've got a bottle of pills, 38 pistol, and beer. And I get a call. And I started AA, tried all that, and it'd help and wouldn't. And I had a sponsor, old cowboy, heroin addict. And he called me and said, Mitch, look out your window. I looked out the window. He said, who do you see? I said, P.O. Pippin, who's the sheriff, who I love to death. I'm good friends with James, one of the most decorated Rangers, we have with us still today. And his brother Brad, who played quarterback, went to West Point, was a helicopter pilot, aeronautical engineer. And he said, we got two choices. He said, we found a place in Tucson, Arizona, that a guy's going to come get you and take you. Our PL's going to come get you and take you to the state hospital. I said, I'm not going anywhere. He said, you want to tell PL that? And PL's a badass. I said, no, I don't. He said, you don't want to go to the state hospital, Mitch. He said, they're going to put you in the psych ward. He said, I know because I've been there. And it's scary as hell. And there are people that will hurt you. And he said, Tucson's not that bad. It's a really nice rehab. I said, okay, I'll try Tucson. Ended up in the desert in Tucson, Arizona, and my counselor, and I learned how to speak all the lingo. I could get myself out of places in 2 weeks. I mean, unless they'd been an addict, I could play them like a fiddle.
Because you wasn't there to get fixed, you were there because you had to go.
Right.
Better than the mental hospital.
Right.
Right.
And so I knew how to play the game. Well, the piano player in the Jethro Tull band turned out to be my counselor in Tucson, Arizona. And I can't think of his name right now, but he saved my life or helped save it. And our first session where we're going around, everybody, tells, and boy, I'm telling all this stuff and how remorseful and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he starts laughing. And it is pissing me off. And he gets to laughing so hard, he falls out of the chair and is rolling and laughing uncontrollably.
He's mocking you.
Cold bullshit.
No. He said, I said, what the hell is your problem? He said, you're lying.
Yeah.
You're lying. You're just like I was. You're such a liar. And he was right. And
That pissed you off, didn't it?
oh, yeah. Yeah, big time. But at this point, though, before I got there, I couldn't go to Mom's house. They had left, and
You're trapped.
yeah, and I've got no money. I owe a dealer quite a bit of money, and wasn't ready to give it up. But at the same time, about a week into it, I ran out in the middle of the desert. Bawling like a baby. And I'd studied God, knew God. We'd been to church. I'd read Revelations 18 times, found that fascinating, etc. and so forth. So I can't say I was, I can't say I wasn't. But I told him, I said, Jesus, if you're real, either kill me or save me.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here right now, putting my hand on this cup. Did I see him? No. Did he put his hand on my shoulder? You're absolutely right, he did. And he said, Mitch, it's going to be okay. That moment on, never wanted any more cocaine, never wanted any beer, held no ill feelings toward anybody I'd hurt. Could not, had a lot of amends to make. The family was scheduled to come out the next week for the family deal, and they were shocked. You're a different person. I said, I know, and I am so sorry for all that I put y'all through. And I said, if I had it's not a willpower thing, or if it is, mine sucks. I said, but Jesus is real. And you know, they're skeptical because they'd been through this before, and they left, and they wanted me to go to a halfway house, and I said, I'm not going to a halfway house. And that was God-led, because a lot of people go to halfway houses and you find more drugs there than you do anywhere. Well, I got no money, so how am I going to get back home? They're trying to repo my pickup. They haven't got it yet. Some guy walks up and says, how much you need for a ticket? I said, blah, blah, blah. He handed me the money, just enough for the ticket. So I got on the after I graduated or whatever, got on the bus, arrived back. My sister agreed to come pick me up at in Wichita. Took me to my pickup, and yeah, I think I had $20 or $30 in the truck, so got a little to eat. Slept in the pickup. I'd go to the gate of the Langford at night. I had a friend that had recovered that occasionally I'd stay on their couch. Ended up getting a road construction job. Of course, went and got to see Marnie. And, of course, Kim's mom and dad were in the front yard. Did not like me, of course, and I don't blame them. Because we'd been down this road and thought we had it, and then I'd screw it up.
You got kids, you understood. Or you do now.
Yeah. And I told Kim when we first talked, I said, I love you. I said, more than anything on this earth. I said, whatever you want to do, I'm fine with. I said, it's nobody's fault but mine. And long story short, we ended up back together, worked my road construction, got another job. Ty happened to come about during that time, and then I'm building abstracts for Mom, who owns a title company. I hated the title work, but I loved building abstracts. That was fascinating. It's history. During the course of that, Tommy Sloan is the head coach at Archer when they're really good. 94, they lost to Goldwaith on extra point. Were ahead and everything else. And Goldwaith won state, and Archer would have won state if they'd won that game. But before that game, the year before, he came and asked me to go scout Pilot Point in Salina because he knew I'd coached. And he said, we'll pay you $50, meal, whatever. So I took my brother and brother-in-law with me. We went to Pilot Point, Texas, and seeing football games, it's just natural. I mean, I see everything. I don't know how to explain it. And I told both of them, all I need is the quarterback's foot action and the opposite receiver route. I said, I can see the line action. I can see everything else. I wrote in training, I put together a 16-page scouting report because the team that was supposed to win wasn't winning, so I was scouting both of them. Mm-hmm. And took it to Tommy. Well, that spring, after that year was over, after 94, the Goldwaith loss, he came to me and said, you need to get back in coaching. And he bragged about the scouting report. He said, you know your stuff. I said, well, from what Dad told me, never coach in your hometown. And I said, you know, I have not lived the most perfect life. And I said, but to be clear, everything I'm talking about is all about Jesus and God, because they're real. There's no way on God's green earth I'm sitting here today if they're not. There's no way I get back into coaching. There's no way I'm sitting here doing this podcast. There's no way that I get that opportunity to go scout, and there's no way my hometown's going to want me coaching their kids.
Right.
But I was 2 years clean or whatever. But some people, it doesn't matter. But he told me, he said, I'll keep you sub-varsity, et cetera, and so forth. Well, I hated doing the title work, so I said, okay, and I got back in it. He was there, got to work with Wayne a couple of years. He was the DC, Had a lot of fun, great staff, cut up. I'd probably stick them on Wayne's desk, stuff like that. And we had good football teams, but we lost, some pretty good players, but made me the baseball coach. And I told the soup, I said, we got a new soup, and Tommy went to White Right, Wayne went to White Right. Palmore came in from Iran, and told me I'd be assistant secondary. Well, 2 games into the season, he said, you're going to be the DC. I said, I will if I do it my way. He said, get it. And became the DC. Was still the head baseball, and we were god-awful. I mean, we were god-awful. And I love the kids, but we had kids striking out off batting tees. I'm not lying. You can't make this stuff up. I never had an assistant coach while I was there that could throw BP. Literally could not throw a baseball. And y'all would know some of them if I named them, but I'm not going to. So I threw every BP, and of course then you did track, you lifted on game days, all that stuff, so our pitcher's legs would run out, and then we're going to have a decent shot at getting in the playoffs my last year there, and our stud pitcher goes up for layup last basketball game of the year and blows his knee out, which that hurt. And anyway, Palmore's still there, and I ended up taking a job for quite a bit of money, I thought, at, what's the name of the town? It starts with an A. Alvord, Texas. And drove back and forth because Kim and Marnie and Ty, they're not leaving. They're never going anywhere. Mom and Dad are there. Everybody's there. And then we went 0-10. I'm driving however far that is, 140 miles a day back and forth. And the guy I was working for was a great guy, great coach. He wasn't AD then, but he works at a really recognizable school. He's won 2 state titles as a coordinator while he's there. But I told Alvoid superintendent called me in and sort of hinted at that I want to be the head coach, which pissed me off. I said, no, you got a head coach. He's the reason I came to work here. So Wayne calls. I'd like to meet with you and talk to you. He just got this job in Knox City. And I'd like you to consider coming being defense coordinator, head baseball here. I said, I'd rather do track because at Alvoid we won our first ever area track meet and district track. We weren't good at anything else, but we had good track here. And that's how we ended up here. I didn't drink for 25 years. My heart started acting up a little bit last year at Stanford, and in doing so I started drinking a little wine, and I drink today. I mean, I drink occasionally. I mean, usually I'll have a toddy in the evening, but I'm not, you couldn't melt me and pour me near the other stuff ever. But I also learned the most important thing I learned, God is real. Jesus is real. And I've seen things during those dark times even. There is a spiritual world. Evil is real. Because during those times, I've met evil people. I mean, it got to the point I was so bad, the drug dealers were scared to be around me.
Oof.
And the whole point of this is, as I've told the kids, if I could give y'all one thing before I leave this profession, God is real. Jesus Christ is real. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a theologian, but I can testify. And I said, there's no way on, and I got thrown out of the back of the truck, cracked my skull. They said I died. And I remember they said I took off running, screaming, I don't want to go to hell. I don't know. And then I just sort of came to in that. And then the heart attack, cancer. There's no other way except He is the way, the truth, and the life. And that's the most important thing I told the kids last time I talked to them here. If you know nothing else, know he's real. You still have a choice. You've got free will. I said, you can be a rebel. I've been down that road. You better be ready to pay a heavy price if you choose that. And so many things I want to tell them that because of what I did and appearances, I had to be careful about things, but I don't have to be careful anymore. I'm probably going to do a talk somewhere at some point in time, but the depths of it, man, there's near the end there before the sheriff was waiting to take me to the state hospital. I was on a 4-day binge, and I got hooked up with this one guy that had major access to major, I've seen $250,000 in cash. I've seen the places where they make the methamphetamine in little out-of-the-way towns, pay a farmer $10,000, we don't want to see you for 2 weeks, and that's when P2P, they had to have it to cook the meth, and it would definitely have a cloud and ruin whatever came in contact with it. I've seen, experienced all of that, and it's just that last binge. I'd been up for, I think the longest I was ever up was like 5 or 6 days.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really weird. But I get the best, most powerful stuff I've ever had. And the paranoia with that was so unbelievable that I was riding in my pickup out in the boonies, in the pastures, avoiding people. I mean, backed up under a tree, hiding from helicopters that weren't looking for me. But the one thing I remember about the last day of that, before the next day when the sheriff came over, is that I got ready to get out of the truck to get a bottle of water out of the back, and there's a guy standing there. And another guy. Now, the one guy, I can still see his face. And this is in the boonies. And something told me, don't get out of the truck. So I crawled through the window, got in the bed of the truck, got the water, got back in the truck. Now, was I delusional? Probably. But just as real as anything I ever remember, just as real as me seeing Jan, still see this guy's face, and he's not a good guy.
Guy with the sickle.
Something like that.
Oh, really?
It was a guy with a beard and
Yep. He's a devil.
just pure evil.
Tell the story.
What do you think would happen if you got out of the truck?
I think I was going to die.
You're a battler. You always have been.
Yeah.
I wish I could go back to those days because me and you were at a lot of the same places.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't do the stuff you've done, but we grew up in the same time frame, in the same neighborhood, in the same areas, and we know a lot of the same people. Because I know, and I thought about that the first time I met you. I met you at the field house. Andy was between 7th and 8th grade, and Andy was lifting weights. And I went up there, and we took him up there, and Hutch was like, Andy was the same size he is now when he was in 7th grade. Because she was like, God damn, that's a big old boy right there. And anyways, like, he's our quarterback. But anyways, he introduced me to you from Archer City, and I knew you. I thought, man, I've seen this guy before, and I know I had been.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Because we've been to a lot of the same places.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember a lot of your stories about the things you said. You told me a story a long time ago that always used to crack me up about you writing a check at a Waffle House in Amarillo. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Was that during your times of using drugs?
I went to,
This
got
makes me laugh.
a large package of it and was going to go see my brother who's in New Mexico, party a little bit. Not saying he did anything. Say my mom's amazing. I will say that. But I never sold any of it. I mean...
You as a user, not a seller.
That's right. So I get back to Amarillo coming home after 2 days being up. I'm starving. I go in, I've got a checkbook, I write a check. They don't take checks. Well, they bring security officer up, and I called Mom and said, look, can you just help me right here? So she called a guy she knew who called them and paid the bill. And I made it to Childress, Texas, and slept in the Walmart parking lot for a few hours, and then ended up getting home. And then that was before the next big binge because, like I said, it was a sizable amount of stuff.
Well, I can tell you as a parent of someone that you coached his kids, you were a great asset to our community, and you were a great leader of my boys. And I could never thank you enough for that. And I think everyone that knows you says that. And I knew a lot of these stories because you've talked to me before. I've played golf with you. I've been around you on vacation. We've done a lot of things together. And you've told me stories, snips and of this. So I knew some of this stuff. But it doesn't define who you are. It defines you as what you've done after you got sober. And that's a hell of a story. And you need to tell more people this because there's a lot of young guys out there and ladies that are in the same boat that you were in that don't realize there's a way out.
There is a way out.
And Kim is an amazing lady.
Oh, yes.
And you can't have better kids than you have now, and they're blessed. No. And for them to know the battles that their dad took to get there is an amazing story. So it's been a hell of a story, Mitch. And your book's not done. You need to write a book.
There's chapters like I'm over at one of the dealer's houses. He's got both his kids, which is amazing to me. And I'd been over a couple of days. We'd just been to Arlington to get a bunch of stuff. And I love that guy. He is such a good guy, but he's just like me. He was hooked. But he could occasionally sell enough to keep going. And he goes to the kitchen to do something. I hear this loud banging, and I walk in there, and he's in seizure. I mean, he's frothing at the mouth, et cetera, and so forth. And he's got this huge amount of product right there. Well, my choice is, do I help him or get the product? I mean, that's how dark I was. I mean,
and that's a pretty common deal.
And I gave him mouth to mouth. He came to. I look over, his daughter's watching. And he was shaking so hard, he had literally moved the ice box and the stove together with his body shaking. And he was gone there for a little bit. And about the second set of compressions, he came back. And you'd think that'd stop somebody. But that was the depths of how powerful the forces of evil can be. But even more importantly, it's a testimony to the amazing grace, faith, love that God and Jesus have for us. He wins. That's the bottom line. God wins. Jesus wins. There's no ties. It's a matter of thinking from a point of victory or defeat. And I mean, I was defeated, so I've looked down that, considered that out option. But at the same time, what God has revealed to me, there's so much more that's more important than that. Everything I've talked about I'm not proud of at all.
It's your story, though.
It's just what happened.
Yep.
It's the truth.
Yep.
But the truth is, when Jesus put his hand on me in the desert and said, Mitch, it's going to be all right, it was instantaneous. Instantaneous.
You felt it? You felt the addiction just go away?
Gone. I was happy. I started laughing.
Kind of like that old boy was laughing at you.
Yeah. I mean, I was just instantly changed. I got to see my oncologist about a year or two of chemo and immuno, which I've got the terminal letter and all that good stuff. And he gets these results back and he said, wow. I said, what? He said, somebody up there likes you. I said, what do you mean? He said, you're in remission. I said, I serve an amazing God and an amazing Savior. He said, I don't know, but somebody up there likes you. I've never seen anything like this. My oncologist right now is freaking out because last biopsy, no cancer cells in the esophagus. It's not supposed to be really possible. But with him, all things are possible. And the miracles I've got to see are way better than the dark side of what I've shared with you. It's like I told the kids when I told them I had cancer, because you can't hide it. People have no idea. Taking immuno and chemo at the same time, twice a month. Never missed a practice. The first year I had a bleed out. My ulcer busted, and the next morning after a scrimmage, I couldn't move. I got up to go outside and fell on my face, crawled back to bed. Kim called, I can't talk. Ty called, I can't talk. And my blood pressure was like 54 over whatever. And they got me there, got the ulcer cauterized and all that. And that day I said, well, I've got practice today. It's a Monday. And the nurse said, no, you're not. I said, yeah, I'm going to be at practice. My wife is throwing a fit. Ty is throwing a fit when I tell him. I said, so get the discharge stuff ready. And Ty said, so stupid. It's 100 degrees. I said, no, it's important for this reason. Because if you're going to talk about faith and you're going to talk about Jesus and God and all those things that he did, he gave us the power to do those. People, well, it left with the apostles. No, it didn't. I've seen things you can't explain that can only be from God. I said, what's important is how do you walk what you talk? Mm-hmm. I said, as a person, that's what I notice more than what I notice that more than what I hear. Because a lot of good speakers out there. I said, but watching them, how do they walk that walk? And I said, the most important thing to me is not that I'm going to make or break practice. It's that he can. I can't, but he can. And he loves us more than we can comprehend. I mean, it's a depth of love we don't understand. You've got children, you love them, right? There's nothing they could ever do, ever, that would make you stop loving them, right?
Right.
Grandchildren, same way. And I said, that's just a glimpse of God's love for us. I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer's mom.
She loved him just like we love our kids. That's right.
And it wouldn't matter. He loves us more than that.
Yep. That's right.
You always had a way of speaking, and I always, your talks always seemed to, I don't know what it was about the way that you would speak to us, like before a game or something. The way that you spoke, I don't know, yours, it always resonated more. It always hit home more. And I love Coach Hutch, and, you know, he, obviously he gives amazing pregame speeches, but the way that you would talk, and I don't know what it was about just the message that you were sending, that it was always about, you better be able to just walk what you talk, right?
That's right.
And so, like, anytime, and I've always thought that, and like even like going back to your history classes, just a lot of the lessons that you would teach, I could always tell that there was something inside of you that was different than any other teacher. You know what I mean? I'm doing a bad job of explaining it, but I could just always tell that you had a past, and that you would walk what you talk always.
Always. Try. I failed, but
well, I don't know about that, but I mean, just anytime baseball, and like I said, even your history lessons, I just always came away with something more than what you were trying to say. I got a different message than what you were trying to say. And I think it's just the way that I could just tell that, you know, I've always said the worst preachers are the guys that don't have a past.
right.
You know, how are you going to preach the word if you've never struggled yourself?
Much like counseling, I agree.
You know, like how can you tell me to fix my life if everything's just been a bed of roses for you? And I could just always tell that you had a grit to you. And, you know, this is the first time that I've ever heard this story, but I could just always tell that there was something behind the way that you were delivering the message.
It's, yeah, I'm so overly blessed and highly favored. It's ridiculous, and it's nothing I've done. It's simply like I told the kids. I said, you got two choices. You think from a point of victory, or you think from a point of defeat.
Mm-hmm.
So life's going to throw a lot of crap at you.
Right.
And when you become a Christian, we had a young man give his life to Christ about a year ago. And I told him, I said, you're going to be attacked. And a lot of people struggle with, oh, that's not, yeah, it's very real.
Mm-hmm.
I won't even get into all that, but we could talk for an hour about that. But when you give your life to Christ, the enemy is going to attack. Different forms. Now, like I said, God wins.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we live in a fallen world. But he gave us Jesus. He chose that. And when I got the news about the cancer being stage 4, I was in Stanford, came back from the clinic, and the doctor calls me over the phone. I pull over, take the call, and he said, well, it's not what we'd hoped for, stage 4. And something. Well, immediately I can't breathe. I'm nauseous. I'm listening to him, but I'm only hearing, we need to do this, and we get you quality of time. And it's just like, bam. When I first got the news, they found it in my throat. But this was bigger, as like from an oncologist saying, this is not good. And I called Kim and told her, and I was struggling. Fear all over me. Anyway, I told Kim I had to hang up. And I said, Father, I need reassurance. Just tell me, please, what to do. I just need you. I need you. And he told me plain as I'm sitting there, Jesus chose the cross for you, Mitch. For
It's all gonna be all right.
Mitch McLemore.
Yeah.
He chose it for you.
Mm-hmm.
By his stripes I am healed. And those words in that Bible are they're real. You can get in a lot of theological debates, but not one time is religion mentioned in the Bible.
Right.
Yeah. We are the church. Have you watched The Chosen?
No.
Oh, wow. It's awesome. I haven't watched all of it, but I love it.
What's it on?
It's a series made with,
I think I have.
the only money they make is volunteered, and it's
I
made a
haven't
killing.
seen it.
You gotta watch it if you want the most accurate portrayal of Jesus' time on this earth that I've ever seen, and it's almost like God's, and it's sort of like Passion of the Christ.
Right.
When he did the cross scene, Jim
Lightning
Cavazos,
strike.
yeah,
Lightning struck
and
him
his
twice.
separated shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the depiction that we get of the crucifixion is tame compared to what history tells you it is.
He literally had no skin.
No, none. And the way he died, basically asphyxiated because his body couldn't. He would have to basically stand up on his feet that have nails through it and pull himself up to get a breath of air.
Yep,
and
which
then,
hurt like hell.
Yeah, and then he's fighting up against nails, and then he would fatigue and then go back down. But basically, your body wears out, and you suffocate to death.
And one of the most of me, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guy, my wife had a bracelet made for me. One of the best things I've ever heard was from a preacher talking about there were two thieves,
Yeah.
And the one thief, if your God's so good, get us off these crosses. And the other one said something to the effect, I'd love to go wherever you go. You did nothing wrong, I did.
Yeah.
And Jesus told him, today you will be with me in heaven. And the guy is making an analogy of it, and St. Peter's questioning the thief, well, do you understand this? And understand? No. He said, well, why do you think you can be here? He said, the guy on the middle cross said I can go. And that's what my bracelet says. Yeah,
Really?
Yeah. The guy on the middle cross
says that I can go. How hard was it whenever you go back to your hometown to dissociate with the people that were dragging you down? Because
it really wasn't any hometown people.
It wasn't.
Now there's
Well, it's a small
occasional
community,
parties,
though.
yeah, occasional parties and stuff like that, but nobody, and that's an unbelievable thing. Cancer's expensive,
Yeah.
and we've talked about how much teachers make, even ADs. I mean, it's good, but it's still, cancer's expensive, and that whole group of people. My cousin came in, put on 2 nights of free shows, James McMurtry, and the Pippen brothers were there the night I got to go because it's during football. And those people, they'll never know how much I love them and thank them, my hometown, for donating the amount of money they did, which has been, money's just money. I mean, it's the root of all evil, there's no doubt. It's just a necessary part of the world we live in. But they didn't have to do that. James didn't have to do that, but they chose to do that. Clay Reed, my brother by another mother, he puts on a coyote hunt over the internet, which raised more than a few $1,000s, which I go to my uncle's funeral and he hands it to. I said, I can't take this. He said, yeah, you can, because that's what it's for.
Right.
And that's what I mean. I'm just, and it really irritates me in this world, like he's become the coyote man. We started hunting together, and he can tell you all about that. But I learned from Marvin Henry, who's put his kids through college, trapping, skinning, killing coyotes, and snake hunting. And he was the county agent there, and when Dad died, he is the only one would come in Dairy Queen when I got back from Tucson, and I'd go have coffee. He'd come in every morning and visit. And then he started taking me fishing and teaching me to deer hunt and all of these things. And to have your hometown, even though you haven't been there in years, and there's been, it's hometowns, people get upset about this, that, or other, but they were all there. And that outpouring of love will never leave me. I hope at some point I get to do something for somebody. I don't want to be in that position, but I hope there's something I can do to help somebody the way God has provided all people and just things that have helped me. I mean, from addiction to the Widowmaker heart attack, don't have those hurt like hell, to this.
So whenever you get home from Tucson, it was easy to not go back to the friend circle that you had.
Right. Most of them were in Wichita Falls.
Right.
Because that's shitty people there.
Well, that's always the hard part. Like, Jeff's always said it, like the worst thing you can do as an addict is go right back into the environment that you were in.
Yeah, you can't get away from it, especially these small towns. In a big city, you might be able to, but if you live in a small town America and you're doing cocaine or methamphetamines with people in town, well, when you go back to town,
you can go through the rehab process,
but you're going to go right back to being around the same people that are your friends, and they're like, come on, chick. Misery loves company.
Yeah, exactly. And I had a couple of loved ones that were still dabbling and partying and all that, but after Jesus touched me, didn't faze me. I mean, wasn't tempted. I mean, you still had little, what do they call them, little moments that sort of triggers.
Yeah.
For me, a bathroom was a trigger for a while.
Because that's where you would do it.
Mm-hmm. Just weird stuff. But I was around. I saw some of those people. The one guy I was talking about that went into seizure, he died, I don't know, less than 5 years ago, running from the cops with a couple ounces of cocaine. He was still in active. I mean, I don't know how, but they were chasing him, and he had a wreck and died.
Did anybody else during that time, a drug user that you were associated with, did anybody else die at that time? Did you see death from anybody that you were running with?
Let me think carefully about this. Actually, no, but I do know of a case. I was very close. I'd been at this place, and one guy OD'd, and I know 2 people put him in the car and took him out and dumped his body.
That happens a lot more than people realize too.
Yeah.
Did you ever OD?
No. No. My tolerances for everything are stupid. I mean, and that's why it just took more and more and more. And that's why it was freaking the people out that did it. Dude, you're going to die. Mm-hmm. Nah. Load that sucker up. Let's go.
Do you know that you have a problem when you're in the midst of it, or is this something that you're thinking, I can manage this? I can manage.
Thought I could manage for a long time.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
So it wasn't until
from the pits.
Tucson that you realized that you were at rock bottom.
No, it was before that. I figured I was on my way off the earth, a year and a half before Tucson.
Your give a shitter had broke by then already.
Right. Well, but I didn't want to die because I couldn't imagine not being able to do drugs.
That's when you know you got a problem right
So
there.
your drugs were keeping you alive.
You don't want to die because you can't get high again.
Right.
I've heard that from a lot of people that were really strung
And
out.
I've done it all except heroin. I tried Dilaudid one time to come down. How people do that is beyond me, because I was sicker than a damn dog for 8 hours. I slobbered, I drooled, I was nauseous. And the heroin addict that was my sponsor that called, as soon as he'd do a shot or whatever, bleh. And I said, anyway, but now some of the other stuff, there's one, if I could take it every day, if it was still legal, I would. I wouldn't, but.
What was it?
Ecstasy.
Ecstasy?
But now it's all fake. You
Right.
used to be able to go in a drugstore and buy that stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you ever do Quaaludes? I've heard of Quaaludes
Yeah.
are really good.
That's just speed, isn't it? Isn't it just speed?
And it's sort of a downer. See, and I tend to go the opposite. I mean, even on meth, I got quieter.
I have a good
It's really weird.
I have a good friend of mine that died of a meth overdose. Real good. One of my best friends growing up. I mean, it really it sucked, but he just was it just was a path, and that was the end of the meth was the last one. But he was a real bad alcoholic, and he quit drinking the last couple of years of his life because he didn't get nothing out of it because it didn't help him with his meth.
Well, I quit drinking the last 3 or 4 years because it interfered with the drugs.
Same with him.
Yeah.
Because that was his argument: is I don't even drink no more. I don't know why everybody don't leave me alone. Well, yeah, because you're fucking streamlining methamphetamines into your system. That's your problem.
See, and that's the crossover. When you, I mean, all of it's bad, but the needle,
Yeah.
that's the one.
That's the end of the line.
Yeah.
And that's him. He, you also said something he had told me before too. He didn't want to die because he was afraid he couldn't get high again.
That's true.
And I've had a couple of my friends that have been down these kind of paths, and I think of the 3 good friends of mine that have had them paths, you're the only one that's still on this side. I think they eventually, every one of them died of an overdose type deal, but it's a tough deal. But they didn't have anybody really that cared about them. I don't think. I think everybody that cared of them had finally had enough of it.
Right.
I mean, you finally get a point where people wash their hands of you.
Yes.
And I understand that.
I experienced that. Yeah.
And I understand that. It's
And
not that
I
don't
never
love you.
blamed them.
No, and I don't blame them. But you finally get to the road where if they don't want to help themselves, by God, what are we going to do? We can't. You can't. Your mom had the shit your mom had to go through, and Kim had to go through.
No.
That's a terrible deal because
And
you
I won't
spend all
tell-
your waking times worried about where they're at.
I don't want to say anything, but I have to ask 2 people their permission. Mom's an amazing woman. I'm just going to put it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's
Her faith is, wow. How,
thanks God every night that you got yourself clean.
yeah. I mean, and, I feel like at some point in time I caused my brother and sister to dabble. Which I hate. but at the same time, was what it was. Mom that's quite a story in itself, but I'm not going to tell their stories.
Your mother-in-law, Miss Marnie, was her name, right?
Donna.
We were in Arch City at a ball game one time, and we stopped at Alsop's to get something. I can remember so much stuff that I don't know why I can remember this. And y'all drove in the bus or something to go in, and you went to go get you some snuff, if I'm guessing, a dip or a Dr. Pepper or some shit. And we were going to Wichita to eat, and your mother-in-law was talking to us because she'd come to all the games, and we talked to her. And I said, your mother-in-law is an amazing woman. And you said, you have no idea, Jeff, how amazing she is.
She really was.
Bingo. But when you were telling that story about you coming to the house and her and Mr. Marnie in the yard with you and Marnie, your daughter there, and Kim, yeah, it is. Because they wouldn't want your ass around no more than if Marnie's boyfriend done what you do the same damn thing.
Damn right.
You would want to kill his ass. I understand that.
Me too.
And so when you were telling me that, and that made me think about your mom, because she was always a really funny lady anyways. She was such a nice lady. And you said you don't know how amazing she is. Well, by God, I do now.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know all that stuff about you then. I had an inkling kind of, because we talked a lot. But,
yeah. But there's a deeper story on her side that was about as bad.
Well, she's an amazing lady, and you've got an amazing story.
Yeah. How much, if you had to think of a number, how much would you spend every month on drugs?
As much as I could get my hands on.
That's a very honest answer.
Like I told you, in Tucson.
All of it, yeah.
When I was in Bryson, I bought a boat. It was a 19-foot fishing boat. I don't even remember the name, but one of the deals was really nice guy there wanted the boat, so he traded me a Dodge pickup, older Dodge, 5-speed in the floor. And when I got back from that trip to New Mexico after the Amarillo deal, one of the first things I had to do was meet that guy and give him that truck.
How much dope?
If I was going to keep getting it.
You had to give him a truck.
Yep.
Well, like Dad used to say about drinking. One's not enough. One's too many, and you don't have enough. Yeah. They're going to spend every dime you got when you got an addiction on that.
And I'd managed to do enough here. I don't know how it all happened, but I managed to do enough. I'd say at the end, not that numbers matter, but I mean, an 8-ball a day.
How much is that, Andy?
An eighth of an ounce.
I don't have I have a clue how much it is, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
And it was back then, too.
Yeah. I mean, but I got into the right or wrong group who would front this, front that. And, of course, I'm always going to sell it. And sometimes I'd sell enough, but most of the time, no. And I don't know how I managed.
You don't?
I mean, I wrote hot checks, and Kim worked at a bank, and she'd have to deal with that early on. Yeah.
Boy, and you're old hard-headed ass, because I've been around you a lot. You got to admit, Coach Mac's pretty hard-headed. Yeah. Could you imagine him on dope? Woof. God almighty.
Yeah.
Did Kim ever, did she ever mention the word divorce? Like, did you ever think that you were going to lose her? Or did you kind of always know that she was going to be in your corner?
I know the night before. Well, I'm not going to go there, but I wouldn't have blamed her.
No, I wouldn't have blamed her either. But was there ever a time where you were like, shit, she really might leave me? Or looking back now?
Yeah, I sort of thought when I got back, but I was at peace with it. I mean, not at peace because I loved her, but I wanted her to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm betting you Kim would have been okay.
How many years have y'all been married?
Be 39.
No. When you went to Tucson the last time.
Oh, I don't know. We got married in, 86?
Yeah.
So, Tucson, what was that? Got back in the spring of 94.
8 years.
Yeah, somewhere
there. Kim's a pretty lady. She wouldn't have had any trouble at all finding her.
No, she wouldn't now. She's still beautiful.
You probably kept her from a life of luxury.
Yeah, probably did. Yeah. And we're looking at this retirement thing, and she found a house that she really likes. I said, well, there's about only 2 ways we can make that happen. I said, divorce me and marry rich, or I die off and the insurance pays off. I said, I've got that terms on it. We don't have long on that, so you're going to have to get busy. I said, because my retirement's definitely not going to be sufficient for that. That's why I'm on. God's going to he's got a door open for me doing something.
You write a book.
I just don't know what.
You write a book. Are you going to stay in Haskell?
Don't know. I mean, that's the honest answer.
Oh, I believe you.
Yeah. I don't know. We love our house there, but I don't know.
They're going to haul my ass out and a stretcher off 3rd Street.
Yep.
There's no doubt in my mind about that. I'm not going nowhere anyways. If I had if I won a big lottery and I could move anywhere, I'd buy me a house up north somewhere, but I'd still.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going to. I love Knox City, and that's where I'll stay forever.
Right. Mom's fixing to get a cabin at Lake Grammar, trying to, and selling her part of the Langford, and that's been a God deal too. I won't get into details, but I'm so excited. She's so excited. She loves the water, loves the lake, and I'm just excited for her to get to do that. And it's a beautiful place, and all the family can come out and all that good stuff. But yeah, I don't know where we'll end up. I mean, we'll be home at some point. I'll say that.
Well,
What's crazy is that whenever you talk to people that have battled some of the same things that you have, when they've reached that breaking point, they've all said the same thing. Like I was over it. I was over it.
It's
just
true.
nothing that nothing could make me go back down that road.
No.
Like 6 rehabs before, whatever it was.
Yeah.
You just weren't done with it yet.
No. I'm not going to say I'm smart, but I can definitely BS with the best of them when it comes. Once I got a feeling after the first one, okay, this is what they want to hear, and yada, yada. But at the same time, yeah, hard-headed a little bit, but it's like the medical stuff with the cancer. I've learned a lot. They do not like you to ask questions, but you need to learn to advocate for yourself.
Right.
And that's why I got fired by my first oncologist.
Well, you know what? Most of those oncologists, it sounds really bad, but most of them are in it for the wrong reason. They're in it for profit.
A lot
and
of them
my dad's last 3 or 4 months, I was like, Dad, this is fucking stupid to drive to Wichita Falls to get you something, and you're not, the chances of you seeing 6 months are done anyways. It makes you miserable. Yeah, but the doctor, he wants you to do that. He's making $25,000 every time they inject that shit in your veins.
One immuno treatment for me is $58,000.
Yeah. Well, I'm just talking whatever my dad, but the profit, that guy was probably making 25 on that 58,000. He's making $20,000 to $30,000 on that deal.
I can give you the numbers.
Yeah, and that's what. So, are they there for you? Or are they there for their checkbook? Because I'm all for a doctor, because there's a lot of good doctors that do a lot of good things, but there's also a lot of these big clinics. They're cashing in profit, and that's all you are. Them beds are a profit maker.
We're fixing to start a whole new show. Because one thing I've considered doing is creating a group of advocates for the patients. Because I've learned what the insurance bills, what they get, how much the items cost. Those medical establishments are still making 15 to 20% profit off what the insurance pays them. And then they try to do you the walk of shame, where they call you back there like they did me, I don't know, 2nd or 3rd time at oncology, and I then make another 20%. Mm-hmm. And one thing I'll tell people, don't ever sign a payout agreement with a medical entity, ever. You will never pay it off. It's, I'm hopeful that Trump will look into all that too, because I'm fortunate the oncologist I got, I trust him. He went crappie fishing with me once.
Yeah, there's some great guys
No,
out
but
there.
You're right. But yeah, they buy, if it's chemo, well, they have to buy it. I mean, they're authorized to purchase that kind of stuff, the ingredients. And then they mix it the day you're there to get it. Well, they buy in bulk, discounted rate, right? Well, so they're making money off of that on top of what insurance is paying.
Every city in America, the fanciest medical building they have is an oncology clinic. Every one of them, and that's where the money's at. Before we get off here, I want to tell you something else too. I just got a text a minute ago. The state of Texas passed the voucher deal.
Yeah. No, they would.
They passed it today, just a minute ago.
We had to let it go, or the teachers weren't going to get a raise.
Yep. So they passed it, and I hope that we get a new governor. I hope we clean house. I hope that all these politicians because we're going to have a big cleaning house at the federal level, and I hope we do it a lot of our state levels too. We need it. We've been lied to. Now our state politicians, I don't think they get paid. I don't think
No,
state senators,
it's like-
but
yeah.
They're all getting paid somewhere.
Yeah, you don't do it for the pay there.
I don't know Joe the plumber that's on the state senate. It's a state senator or anything. Every one of them I know has got a lot of money. So
But I would love to. That's something I'd love to do.
But wasn't the insurance company originally supposed to be an advocate for the patient to make
Yes.
sure that the doctors weren't ripping you off?
Yes.
years ago.
And then they figured out all the money that they could make.
Yes.
Yep. And that's why there's only like 3 or 4 insurance companies now, probably.
on the
And I'm
back-
way off on that, I know, but they're all getting paid.
On the back of my insurance card, it's got a number for the patients. They're going to help you, right?
Shit.
I needed a PET scan first or second year of the cancer stuff, and he did a peer-to-peer with a pediatrician who denied it. This is an oncologist telling this person why. So I call that number. I'd say I had 8 to 9 hours of calls before I got to the right person. And I got it approved, but it was already past time. He said, well, we're already moving forward. But most people give up.
Yeah, it's a scam and a half. It's just like your homeowners. If you have something happen at your house, what do you got to call? An insurance adjuster. Who does the insurance adjuster work for? The insurance company. So do you really think they have your best interest? No.
No.
It's all about making profit.
Right.
And it's a crappy,
And then you
deal.
got some that are honest. As long as they're honest, I can live with
There are
that.
good people in every deal. There are
Yeah.
some great oncologists out there that are doing it for the right reason, but a lot of those big oncology clinics are about making profit.
Right.
And that's what everything else is. From our politicians to our doctors to insurance, it's all a scam to make a lot of money. And that's how they're set up to do.
And here's what puzzles me about the world in general right now. People can't just be happy for people being successful. I'm sure y'all have experienced, like I was talking about the cow man, Clay. The better he did, the more animosity, jealousy.
It's the world we live in.
You're in the waterfowl hunting world. I can guarantee you.
Oh, we're not the most liked people anywhere we go.
Yeah,
We know that.
Yeah. I mean, why? Why not be happy for people?
They just not in people's human nature.
I
I think it's an older deal. We're older and we understand that now. I
Yeah.
think younger people, it's harder for them. I probably, when I was younger, didn't either. But now I'm that way.
I'm just, when somebody, God bless, I mean, look at y'all from when I lived at Knox City to now. It's not, y'all had a great business. Look at what y'all done, what God's done. Why would you not be happy?
Yep.
You
We've been really blessed and we give a lot back. A lot of people don't know that. But
Right.
we don't do it for that reason.
I know.
Well, Mitch, we appreciate you being on here, bud.
a hell of a
wanna-
story.
And when next chapters, we'll do this again here pretty soon.
Gotcha.
All right.
Sounds
Appreciate
good.
you.
Thank y'all.
We're
Thank
glad
you.
you're here. We're glad you made it through. I know it's a
Amen.
dark
Thank you,
time,
Lord.
but
Give Kim a hug.
Will do.
All right. And hug her
give him
for
a-
Clay, too, because Clay will want to hug her also.
Give Michelle a
I
hug.
sure will.
all right, bye everybody.
See you. Bye.